The bridge of the Terran exploration vessel Horizon hummed with excited energy. Commander Reed stood tall by the main viewport, watching the stars shift as they approached the edge of mapped space. This mission could change everything. First contact with the Vorn, a species known only through distant scans and intercepted signals, promised new knowledge and maybe even new allies. 5 minutes until we reach the meeting coordinates, Commander, said Davis from the navigation console. His fingers danced over the controls, making small adjustments to their course. Reed nodded. All systems check. Green across the board, replied Torres, her eyes fixed on the system's display. The welcome message is ready to broadcast on all frequencies as planned. Reed had prepared for this moment for months. The Vorn were said to be technologically advanced, with ships faster and more powerful than anything humans had built. Their home system sat at a strategic location that could open new trade routes across this sector of the galaxy. If all went well, humanity would gain a valuable friend in the vastness of space. Communication pod ready for launch, said Jones, the communications officer. The translation matrix is loaded with all the language data we've gathered. The plan was simple. Send out the unmanned pod first. It would broadcast peaceful greetings and establish initial contact before the Horizon itself approached. Standard first contact protocol, designed to avoid misunderstandings. Launch the pod, Reed ordered. The small craft detached from the Horizon with a gentle thud and moved forward, its lights blinking in the darkness. On all channels, it began transmitting the carefully crafted message of peace and friendship. Minutes passed in tense silence. Commander, I'm detecting movement, Torres suddenly called out. A ship just dropped out of FTL. It's huge. The main screen changed to show a massive vessel appearing in the distance. Its design was unlike anything in human records, all smooth curves and shimmering metal that seemed to bend light around it. The pod is receiving a response, Jones said, excitement in his voice, running it through the translation matrix now. Reed felt his heart beating faster. This was the moment that would be remembered in history books. The first words exchanged between humans and the Vorn. The speakers crackled, and a series of harsh sounds filled the bridge before the translation software converted them to English. Warning. Territorial violation detected. Leave immediately. Reed frowned. That doesn't sound right. Send the clarification package explaining our peaceful intentions. Jones nodded and sent the follow-up message. The response came faster this time. Final warning. Your claim device has been detected. Claim device. Reed looked confused. They must mean the communication pod. There's a translation error. Before anyone could respond, a beam of brilliant blue light shot from the Vorn ship. It struck the communication pod, which exploded instantly. They're charging weapons again. Torres shouted. Target lock on us. Evasive maneuvers. Reed ordered, grabbing his command chair as the ship lurched sideways. Jones, keep transmitting that we come in peace. Another energy beam cut through space, grazing the Horizon's port side. The ship shuddered violently. Hull breach on decks 4 and 5. Someone called out. Emergency teams responding. Get us out of here, Davis. Maximum speed. The Horizon turned sharply and accelerated away from the Vorn vessel. More energy beams followed them, one striking the shuttlecraft that was docked on the lower bay. The explosion tore through the ship's rear section. We've lost the shuttle bay. 12 crew members unaccounted for. Torres's voice cracked with emotion. Reed stared at the screen in shock as the Horizon flood. What should have been a historic moment of peace had turned into a nightmare. Somehow, the Vorn had misunderstood their intentions completely. As the stars stretched into lines around them, Reed made a silent promise to the crew members who would never return home. This wasn't over. Humanity had reached out in friendship and been met with violence. Now they needed to understand why and be ready for what would come next. News of the attack spread quickly through human space. Within days, Emergency meetings were called at the Terran Alliance headquarters on Earth. The Horizon had limped back to the nearest outpost, its damaged hull and grieving crew a stark reminder of how badly first contact had gone. Admiral Wilson paced the length of the war room, her face grim as she studied the holographic display of known space. Red markers showed the position of Vorn territory, with a flashing boundary line where the Horizon had been attacked. "They've already started broadcasting to other species," said Thompson, the head of intelligence. He tapped a command into his tablet, and a series of alien transmissions appeared on the main screen. "They're claiming we sent an automated territorial claim device into their space. It's a formal way of declaring ownership in some parts of the galaxy." Wilson shook her head. "A communication pod is nothing like a claim device." "To us, maybe," Thompson replied. "But we're dealing with alien psychology here. The Vorn seem to operate on rigid protocols. In their culture, any unauthorized device entering their space might be interpreted as a territorial challenge." The door slid open, and Commander Reed entered. His uniform was crisp, but dark circles under his eyes revealed the toll the past few days had taken. "Commander," Wilson nodded, "your timing is perfect. We've just received new intelligence." Reed joined them at the display table. "What am I looking at?" Thompson expanded the hologram to show movement patterns across several star systems. "These are the current positions of known alien vessels. Notice how they're all adjusting course to avoid human space." Reed leaned closer. "They're afraid of us." "No," Wilson said quietly. "They're afraid of getting caught in the middle of what they believe is an upcoming war. The Vorn have significant influence among the galactic species. Their version of events is being accepted without question." An aide rushed in and handed Wilson a datapad. Her expression darkened as she read it. "The Vorn have deployed a battle fleet. They're heading toward our border stations." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. The Vorn fleet was technologically superior to anything humans had built. Their ships were faster, their weapons more advanced, and their defense systems nearly impenetrable according to all intelligence reports. "We can't match them ship for ship," Reed said, voicing what everyone was thinking. "No, we can't," Wilson agreed. "But we have to try." She turned to the room. "I want every available vessel recalled to form a defensive line. We'll establish our position at the Sol system's outer boundary." As officers hurried to carry out her orders, Wilson gestured for Reed to stay behind. "What aren't you telling everyone?" Reed asked once they were alone. Wilson's shoulders slumped slightly. "The Alliance Council is divided. Some believe we should offer formal apologies and reparations, even though we did nothing wrong. Others want to show strength, but—" She looked up at the display of the approaching Vorn fleet. "You've seen their ships up close. What are we really facing here?" Reed considered the question carefully. "Their technology is beyond ours." "That's true." But there was something rigid about how they responded. No attempt to understand or communicate once they decided we were hostile. It was all procedure, no adaptation. Wilson nodded slowly. "That matches what our xenopsychologists have pieced together about their culture. The Vorn value order above all else. Their entire society is built around predictability and protocol." "That might be something we can use," Reed said, an idea forming in his mind. "How so?" "Humans have never been good at following the expected path. It's what makes us human." Reed stepped forward and adjusted the display to show the Sol system. "If we can't outgun them, maybe we can outthink them." Wilson studied the display, then looked at Reed with the first hint of hope she'd shown all day. "What did you have in mind, Commander?" Reed pointed to the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. "Something unexpected." Jack stared at the data scrolling across his screen until his eyes burned. As the Horizon's intelligence officer, he had been tasked with finding any possible weakness in the approaching Vorn fleet. So far, he had found nothing but more reasons to worry. "Their shield technology is at least 3 generations ahead of ours," he muttered to himself, taking another sip of cold coffee. Weapons capable of sustained fire at ranges our targeting systems can't even reach. And their engines. He shook his head in frustration. The door to his small office slid open. Commander Reed stepped in, looking as tired as Jack felt. "Any progress?" Reed asked. Jack gestured at his cluttered screens. "Nothing useful yet. By all measures, they outclass us in every category. It's like bringing knives to a gunfight." Reed pulled up a chair. "There has to be something. No species is perfect." "Perfect? No. But they evolved in a stable system with a predictable star and no significant asteroid fields. Their home planet has minimal geological activity and stable weather patterns." Reed frowned. "Why is that relevant?" Jack wasn't sure himself at first, but something was forming in his mind. "I've been reviewing their flight patterns from our encounter. Their maneuvers were textbook perfect, but..." He pulled up the sensor logs and pointed at the screen. "Look here and here. When our helmsman took evasive action with that spin and dive move, their tracking fire fell behind for 3.7 seconds. That's not much." "No, but it's something. Every time we did something erratic or unexpected, their response lagged slightly." Jack sat up straighter as the idea crystallized. "Commander, what if their strength is also their weakness?" Jack quickly pulled up data on Earth's geological and meteorological history. "We evolved on a planet with wildly fluctuating conditions: ice ages, floods, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes. Our ancestors had to adapt constantly to survive." Reed leaned forward. "And the Vorn didn't." "Exactly. Their evolutionary path rewarded consistency and predictability. Ours rewarded adaptation and improvisation." Jack switched to a map of the Sol system. "Our pilots trained in the asteroid belt from day one. The constantly shifting gravitational influences, unpredictable debris movements, radiation bursts from Jupiter. It's the perfect chaos training ground." "And the Vorn would hate it," Reed said, beginning to understand. "Their rigid protocols wouldn't work well there." Jack nodded excitedly. "I checked their flight paths across known space. They always take the longest route around asteroid fields, even when it adds significant time to their journey." Reed stood up and paced the small room. "You're suggesting we use the belt as our battlefield?" "It's the one place where our experience might give us an edge." Jack pulled up simulation data. "Human pilots in the belt have to make constant micro-adjustments and rely on instinct as much as instruments. The Vorn, with their love of order, would likely depend heavily on automated systems and predetermined protocols, which won't work well in the chaos of the belt." Reed finished. He clapped a hand on Jack's shoulder. "This is good. This is very good. I need you to prepare a full briefing for Admiral Wilson within the hour." As Reed turned to leave, Jack called after him. "Sir, there's just one problem." "What's that?" "We'd have to lure them in. The Vorn aren't going to enter the asteroid belt willingly." Reed smiled for the first time in days. "Leave that to me. I think it's time humanity showed the galaxy that technology isn't everything." Within hours, Jack found himself presenting his theory to the assembled fleet commanders. As he spoke, he saw the expressions around the table change from grim resignation to cautious hope. Admiral Wilson rose when he finished. "Gentlemen, we may be outgunned, but we are not outmatched. Prepare your crews for irregular combat in the belt. It's time to show the Vorn that humans thrive in chaos." The human fleet waited at the edge of the asteroid belt, ships positioned in a standard defensive formation. To any observer, it looked like humanity's last stand, a desperate attempt to protect their home system with whatever vessels they could gather. Admiral Wilson stood on the bridge of the flagship Defender watching the tactical display as red dots representing the Vorn fleet grew closer. "They're maintaining formation," reported the sensor officer. 30 ships in total, arranged in their standard attack pattern. Wilson nodded. The plan relied on the Vorn behaving exactly as expected: predictable, methodical, and overconfident. "All ships report ready, Admiral," said her communications officer. Good. Wilson took a deep breath. Remind all captains. Maintain formation until my signal, then execute Plan Chaos exactly as rehearsed. Commander Reed stepped up beside her. The Vorn will think we're making our stand here, at the edge of the belt. And when they commit to the attack, we run, Reed finished, but not how they expect. The minutes ticked by slowly. The Vorn fleet appeared at the edge of their sensor range, advancing in perfect geometric precision. Their ships gleamed in the distant sunlight, sleek and powerful. "They're hailing us," the communications officer announced. "On screen," Wilson ordered. The alien face that appeared was smooth-skinned with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. It spoke in a flat, mechanical tone, the translation software converting its words to English. "This is High Commander Tev of the Vorn Defense Authority. You have committed acts of aggression against our territory. Surrender your vessels and prepare to be boarded." Wilson stepped forward. "This is Admiral Wilson of the Terran Alliance. There has been a misunderstanding. We sent a communication pod, not a claim device." "Your deception is noted," Tev replied without emotion. "Your surrender is required within 5 minutes, or we will open fire." The screen went dark. "Well, that went as expected," Wilson said dryly. "Are all ships linked to navigation control?" "Yes, Admiral. Synchronized and ready." Wilson checked the time. 4 minutes remained in the Vorn ultimatum. She had no doubt they would attack precisely when they said they would, not a second before or after. "All hands, prepare for evasive action," she ordered. The bridge crew buckled into their stations. Throughout the fleet, pilots and crew did the same, adrenaline coursing through their bodies. 3 minutes, the tactical officer counted down. Reed moved to his assigned station. "The asteroid density increases 20% at the first waypoint. That's where we'll really see if their ships can adapt." 2 minutes. Wilson studied the Vorn formation. They had arranged their ships for maximum firing coverage, a textbook approach for engaging a stationary or slow-moving enemy. 1 minute. "All ships, power to engines on my mark," Wilson ordered. 30 seconds. The Vorn fleet began powering up their weapons systems. Energy readings spiked across the tactical display. 10 seconds. Wilson leaned forward slightly. "Mark." Across the human fleet, engines flared to life. But instead of retreating in a uniform direction, as the Vorn would expect, each ship took off at a different angle, all plunging into the asteroid belt along pre-planned but seemingly chaotic routes. From the Vorn perspective, it must have looked like total disarray, a panicked rout by an undisciplined enemy. "They're firing," called out the tactical officer. Energy beams cut through space where the human ships had been moments before. A few grazed their targets, but most missed entirely as the human vessels corkscrewed and tumbled unpredictably into the belt. "They're pursuing," Reed reported, watching his display. "All of them, just as we hoped." Wilson nodded with grim satisfaction. The Vorn ships followed in tight formation, their neat patterns already beginning to strain as they encountered the first scattered asteroids. "All ships, execute Phase 2, Wilson ordered. The human fleet dispersed further, each vessel following a route that looked random but had been carefully plotted to take advantage of the constantly shifting asteroid field. Some dived between tumbling rocks, others skimmed along the surfaces of larger bodies, using them as shields. "The Vorn are maintaining formation, but they're slowing down," Reed reported. "Their coordination is already suffering." Wilson watched as the red dots representing the Vorn ships began to spread out, their perfect formation breaking down in the face of the asteroid field's chaos. "Now we'll see if your theory holds, Commander," she said quietly. "Let's hope humans aren't the only ones who can adapt." But the growing frustration in the Vorn commander's next transmission suggested otherwise. High Commander Tev gripped the arms of his command chair as another proximity alarm blared through the bridge of the Vorn flagship *orderly path*. His 4 eyes narrowed in frustration. "Silence that alarm," he ordered, "and give me a status report on the fleet." His second in command, Officer Mez looked up from the tactical display. "We have lost formation integrity, Commander. Ships 7 through 15 report difficulty maintaining their assigned positions due to the asteroid density." Tev made a gesture of displeasure. This was not proceeding according to established protocols. The human ships were not behaving as enemy vessels should. Instead of retreating in an organized manner or standing to fight, they scattered like insects, each taking a different path through the asteroid field. "The targeting systems cannot establish reliable locks," reported the weapons officer. "The humans are using the asteroids to break our tracking algorithms." "Then switch to manual targeting," Tev ordered. The weapons officer looked uncomfortable. "Sir, most of our gunners have minimal experience with manual systems. We rarely need to override the automated targeting." Another alarm sounded as a small asteroid tumbled past, barely missing their port side. "This is absurd," Tev muttered. "No sensible species would choose to fight in such conditions." He turned to the navigation officer. "Where is the human flagship?" "Uncertain, Commander. We lost track of it approximately 3 minutes ago when it dove behind that large nickel-iron asteroid." As if on cue, the communication system activated. Admiral Wilson's face appeared on screen. "Having trouble following us, Commander Tev?" she asked, a strange expression on her face that the Vorn translation system identified as amusement. "Your tactics are illogical," Tev replied. "You cannot win this engagement. Your technology is inferior." "Perhaps," Wilson agreed. "But we're not all about technology. Humans have something else." Before Tev could respond, the sensor officer called out, "Commander, human vessel approaching from behind asteroid J42. "Impossible," Tev said. Nothing could navigate through that cluster at combat speed. Yet his own visual sensors showed him a human ship emerging from a dense field of tumbling rocks, moving in a way that defied the predictive models. It executed a tight spiral around a spinning asteroid, using the rock's momentum to slingshot itself directly toward one of the Vorn support vessels. "Warn Ship 23 to evade," Tev ordered. But the warning came too late. The human ship fired its primitive projectile weapons at point-blank range, overwhelming the Vorn vessel's shields through sheer concentrated force. The support ship's engine section erupted in flames, sending it spinning into the path of another asteroid. Throughout the field, similar scenes were playing out. Human ships appeared where the algorithms said they couldn't possibly be, attacked, and vanished again into the chaos of the belt. "Sir, we've lost contact with ships 4, 12, and 23, Mez reported, his voice betraying rare emotion. "And Ship 17 reports their navigation systems are completely compromised." Tev watched in disbelief as the tactical display showed his perfect formation dissolving into disorder. This was not how space combat was conducted. There were rules, protocols, established methods that all civilized species followed. "Their pilots are flying manually," the navigation officer said with what sounded like reluctant admiration. "They're making adjustments faster than our systems can predict." Another human vessel flashed past their viewports, impossibly close, its pilot's face visible for a brief moment. The human was smiling. "Order all ships to regroup outside the asteroid field," Tev finally commanded. "But sir, the humans will escape. If we stay here, we will lose the entire fleet," Tev said. "The humans are not fighting according to any recognizable doctrine. They are improvising." He spoke the last word as if it were distasteful, a concept foreign to the Vorn way of thinking. Throughout the galaxy, species had moved beyond such chaotic approaches to warfare. Combat was now a science, conducted according to established principles, and with predictable outcomes. Yet here were the humans, turning a hopeless battle into something else entirely through what appeared to be sheer unpredictability. As the Vorn fleet struggled to extract itself from the trap, Tev received transmissions from other alien vessels observing from a safe distance. All carried variations of the same message. Warning: enemy warship detected. Humans approaching. For the first time in his long career, High Commander Tev felt something unfamiliar. Doubt about the superiority of the Vorn way. News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Through quantum communication channels and subspace relays, species across 3 sectors watched with growing amazement as the primitive human fleet held its own against the mighty Vorn. On the observation deck of a merchant vessel from the Glynn Confederation, Captain Ors and his crew gathered around a tactical display. They had been forced to halt their trading route when the warning came through. Avoid the Sol system at all costs. It doesn't make sense, said Or's navigator. The humans have maybe a dozen ships. The Vorn fleet has 3 times that number and far superior technology. Ors studied the data feeds with a mixture of confusion and fascination. Yet look at the battle reports. The Vorn have lost 5 vessels already, with 7 more damage. The humans have lost only 2. How is this possible? Asked another crew member. Or zoomed in on one section of the asteroid belt. They're fighting like nothing I've ever seen. No formations, no standard attack patterns. Each ship seems to be acting independently, yet somehow coordinated. Meanwhile, aboard the human flagship Defender Admiral Wilson received the latest battle reports with grim satisfaction. Their gamble was paying off, but the cost had been high. 2 ships lost, several more damage, and good people gone. The Vorn fleet is regrouping outside the belt, Admiral Reed reported. They're arranging themselves in a containment pattern. It looks like they're trying to seal off all exit vectors. Wilson nodded. As expected, they're adapting to the situation, but still thinking in terms of predictable patterns. She studied the tactical display. Have all ships switched to pattern Delta? Throughout the asteroid field, human vessels began to move in new ways, shifting their seemingly random maneuvers into something else entirely, still unpredictable, but with a hidden purpose. Broadcast to all ships, Wilson ordered. Phase 3 begins on my mark. Back on the Vorn flagship, High Commander Tev was struggling to restore order to his scattered fleet. Establish a perimeter around all possible exit vectors from the asteroid field, he commanded. The humans cannot remain in there forever. Their fuel supplies must be limited. Sir, his sensor officer interrupted. We're detecting unusual movement patterns among the human ships. Explain. They appear to be gathering asteroids. Tev frowned. That makes no tactical sense. The answer came moments later when a cluster of asteroids, carefully nudged into new trajectories by human ships, came hurtling toward the Vorn perimeter. Each rock had been precisely calculated to strike at weak points in their formation. Evasive action, Tev ordered, but the carefully arranged perimeter broke apart as ships scrambled to avoid the incoming bombardment. In the confusion, 3 human vessels slipped through the gap, racing toward a nearby Vorn communications relay. They're targeting our communication array, Med shouted. Tev watched in disbelief as the small, agile human ships executed a coordinated attack on the relay, knocking out the Vorn fleet's connection to their central command. The humans had somehow identified this weakness, that Vorn captains relied heavily on central direction rather than individual initiative. All ships, return fire, Tev ordered, but the damage was done. Without the communications relay, his fleet's coordination suffered further. Throughout nearby systems, alien observers continued to track the battle with growing amazement. The warning message that had begun as a simple alert was evolving into something else. Warning. Enemy warship detected. Humans approaching. Exercise extreme caution. Among the Jelk, a species known for their logical analysis, scholars were already drafting new theories about human combat doctrine. They appear to thrive in conditions of maximum unpredictability, one report noted. Traditional engagement protocols are ineffective. The Murith, longtime trading partners with the Vorn, sent an urgent message to their defense ministry. Reconsider all standard defense formations. The human approach defies conventional tactical logic. Even the Kree Empire, usually aloof from lesser species conflicts, took notice. Their military observers filed reports suggesting a complete review of combat protocols should humans ever approach their territory. Back in the asteroid field, Admiral Wilson allowed herself a small smile as reports came in from across the fleet. Their unconventional tactics were working. The Vorn were on the defensive, their superior technology rendered less effective by an environment they couldn't predict and enemies who refused to follow the expected patterns. "Send a message to Commander Tev," she told her communications officer. "Tell him we're ready to discuss terms when he is." 3 days after the battle in the asteroid belt, representatives from both sides gathered on a neutral space station. The Glynn Confederation had offered their commercial outpost as a meeting ground, eager to help resolve a conflict that was disrupting trade across the sector. Admiral Wilson led a small human delegation into the conference room. She wore her formal uniform with all decorations, a silent reminder of humanity's military capability, despite their technological disadvantages. Commander Reed and Jack stood beside her, along with 2 other officers. Across the table sat High Commander Tev, his 4 eyes scanning the humans with careful attention. His delegation was smaller than expected, a sign of respect, Wilson realized. The Vorn were acknowledging this as a meeting of equals, not a surrender. "Admiral Wilson," Tev said, his translator converting his speech to clear English. "Your species has proven unexpected." Wilson nodded. "We get that a lot, Commander." The neutral Glynn mediator, a tall being with silvery skin, stepped forward. "Both parties have agreed to discuss terms for a cessation of hostilities. Who would like to begin?" Tev spoke first. "The Vorn Collective acknowledges a translation error occurred during first contact with the human vessel Horizon *. What we interpreted as a territorial claim device was, in fact, a communication pod. It was as close to an apology as the rigid Vorn culture allowed." Wilson accepted it with a nod. "The Terran Alliance acknowledges that entering unknown space carries risks of misunderstanding," she replied. "We should have been more careful with our approach." The mediator seemed pleased. "Good. Now, regarding territorial boundaries." Over the next few hours, they hammered out a formal peace agreement. The Vorn would recognize human sovereignty over the Sol system and several nearby stars. In return, humanity would establish clear communication protocols for any future contact. Both sides would maintain a buffer zone between their territories. As the official negotiations concluded, Tev approached Wilson privately. "There is something I must understand," he said, his voice lower than before. "Your ships were outmatched in every conventional measure of combat effectiveness, yet you prevailed. How?" Wilson considered her answer carefully. "Humans evolved on a world that tried to kill us in 1,000 different ways. Earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanoes, predators, disease. We survived by adapting quickly to changing conditions. But the Vorn value ordered," Tev said. "It has been the foundation of our advancement." "And that works beautifully in predictable environments," Wilson replied. "But humans expect chaos. We plan for it. Sometimes we even create it." Tev's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep thought in Vorn body language. "This is why you chose the asteroid field." "Yes, it gave us an environment where adaptation was more valuable than technological superiority." "A clever strategy," Tev admitted. "Our analysts are still trying to understand how your pilots navigated those conditions." Wilson smiled slightly. "They improvised." The very word seemed to make Tev uncomfortable, but he nodded in acknowledgement. "The galaxy will look at humans differently after this." "I hope so," Wilson said. "We come seeking friendship, not war. But we will defend ourselves if needed." As they prepared to depart the station, reports came in from across the sector. The message that had once been a warning had transformed again. "Attention, human vessels approaching. Prepare for unconventional diplomacy." On dozens of worlds, species that had previously dismissed humans as primitive newcomers were reassessing their position. Diplomatic envoys were being prepared, trade opportunities explored, military doctrines revised. Back aboard the Defender Reed joined Wilson on the observation deck as they prepared to return to Earth. "Did you see the news feeds?" he asked. "We're becoming famous." Wilson nodded. "For now. But fame fades. What do you think will last?" She watched as the stars stretched into lines around them, the ship accelerating toward home. Respect. Understanding that different evolutionary paths create different strengths. The Vorn built perfect order, and it made them powerful. We embrace chaos, and it made us adaptable. Reed smiled. "And which is better?" "Neither. Both. The galaxy needs order and chaos, predictability and innovation." Wilson turned from the viewport. "That's what I hope lasts from all this, the recognition that diversity of thought is strength, not weakness." As the human fleet returned to Earth, carrying news of their unexpected victory, the warning that had once caused fear now carried a different message throughout the galaxy. Humans approaching. A new kind of ally has entered the stars.